She left me a message after her death, 7 words scribbled in a child's hand, and when I read them, I uncovered a truth so brutal it shattered every lie I had lived. My wife hadn't lost a daughter, she had silenced one. She died on a Wednesday. The house smelled like lilies, and the air was heavy with a silence that wasn't peace, but suppression. My wife stood in the kitchen, her hands busying themselves with the silverware drawer, as if control over knives and forks would anchor her. "We need to throw out everything," she said, "all of it." Her words were soft, but each one struck like a blade. "It'll help us heal." She didn't look at me. Maybe she knew what she was asking. Maybe she didn't care if funeral was still hours old. Dirt clung to my fingernails. Our daughter's voice hadn't faded yet. It echoed like a haunting lullaby in the corners of my mind. But I nodded because unraveling her would be like opening a dam, and I wasn't ready for the flooding. Went into her room alone. The pink curtains swayed slightly from a draft, like they were waving goodbye in their quiet rebellion. The stuffed animals sat in rows, the silent witnesses to a story that was never told. Her drawings were still on the walls, stories she had screened in colors. Yet none of us had hidden her desks at the unicorn diary I had bought her last Christmas. It was closed, but not empty. A folded paper peeked out, daring to be found. I opened it with hands that remembered how to be a father. 7 words in crooked, determined handwriting stared back at me. "Daddy, if you're reading this, look under the bed right now and you'll understand everything." Floor met my knees with a thud, and I reached under the bed. My fingers found a showbox. Inside were fragments of a child's truth, drawings, letters, receipts. None addressed to her mother, not even once. They were all to me. Among them, a sketch stood out. Stick figures, a small girl holding my hand, both of us smiling. Behind us, a larger figure loomed, a woman with red eyes and a mouth stretched into a jagged scream. Above her, in dark crayon letters, the words "her," my wife. The letters grew frantic, almost desperate. "She locks me in. He doesn't know. Mommy gets angry when I'm happy." Every line stripped away my excuses. I had missed this, or maybe I chose not to see it. Love blinds. But grief? Grief is a merciless revelatory moved through the following days like a ghost, spectating life. My wife mourned publicly. Tears arrived on schedule, followed by practiced smiles when the cameras came. At night, she turned into someone else. She flinched at our daughter's name. She drank wine with the urgency of someone drowning. She whispered into the bathroom mirror when she thought I was asleep. Curiosity turned into suspicion, and suspicion bled into certainty. I accessed her cloud storage. Deleted messages aren't truly gone. In a hidden folder, I found conversations with someone, saved as M. My stomach sank as I read "It's finally done. He bought the accident story." Lil John just wouldn't stop crying. I read every word, every emoji, until dawn colored the sky. There was no need to confront her with screams. She wasn't worth that energy. I printed everything, every message, every medical report I had ignored, every pediatrician's note about bruises we both knew existed. I laid them on the table like a surgeon preparing for an autopsy. Walked in with her coffee, saw the screen first, then the papers. Her face lost its color. "That's not real," she said, but her hands betrayed her. They trembled as she reached for the tablet. I didn't stop her. Instead, I slid an envelope across the table. A flash drive sat inside, cold and definitive. She looked at me, voice barely a whisper. "What are you going to do?" I'd have been her husband once. That morning, I was simply the executor of her consequences. Next morning was surgical. I handed her a suitcase, pre-packed, with a one-way plane ticket perched on top. She laughed, a nervous, empty sound. "You can't prove anything. You're right," I said, and passed her another envelope. She opened it slowly, as if fearing the paper itself. Inside was a copy of the flash drive, but this one came with a list of recipients: Child Protection Services, law enforcement, and an attorney. She wasn't laughing now. "You wouldn't you lean in. You made her afraid to live. You don't deserve to stay here." Raw and unfiltered, finally painted her face. She packed silently. As she crossed the threshold, she paused, waiting for me to stop her. The offer redemption. I didn't. Redemption is for the repentant. She wasn't house became a mausoleum of memories. Too clean, too sterile. But I refused to touch her room. The pink curtains remained open. The drawing stayed taped to the wall. The showbox lived on her desk. Every night, I sat on her bed and read her letters. They weren't letters of goodbye. They were letters of warning, and I had failed to listen in public. I wore the face of a grieving father. In private, I became a curator of my daughter's truth. I connected the dots that law enforcement missed. The M in the messages was a man named Marcus, a childhood friend of my wife who had re-entered our lives as a financial advisor. His name appeared in text threads, in financial transfers, in photographs where he stood too close. Smiled to Whittier by one, I collected the pieces. It was no longer about justice in a court of law. That process is slow and often blind. This was about exposing Rod, and Rod doesn't survive sunlight. He uploaded everything: videos, documents, voice recordings, an anonymous leak to investigative journalists. The story of a mother whose grief was a performance, whose child had been silenced not by accident, but by design. The media devoured it. Headlines screamed the truth I had carried along me. Wife's arrest was broadcast live. She wore the same practice tears, but this time, no one applauded Min's past. The world moved on, but her room remained untouched. People kept asking if I was healing. Healing is a polite word. It's a word for people who believe closure is a gift given freely. Some wounds aren't meant to close. Some truths don't bring peace. They bring clarity. Still hurt her, not in a supernatural way. No whispers through the walls, but in the echo of my thoughts. I remembered her laughter, her joy, and beneath it, the warning she had tried to etch into my blind spots. She started volunteering at a children's shelter, not because it was noble, but because it was necessary. I needed to listen where I had once failed. Every child had a story. Some spoke with words, others with silence. I learned to hear both on evening. As I was locking up the shelter, a little girl tugged my sleeve. Her hands were clenched into fists, hiding something. She opened them slowly, revealing a drawing, stick figures, a small girl holding a man's hand, safe, smiling. Behind them, a shadowy figure with red eyes. He knelt, heart sinking. But this time, I listened at night. Sitting in my daughter's room, I realized the truth. Betrayal shatters you, but silence, after truth, kills you slowly. My daughter had told me everything. I just hadn't been ready to hear it. But now, every day, I make sure I am listening. Becky's the one voice that had mattered the most had been silenced once. I wouldn't let it happen again. Silence beneath her voice became my loudest purpose.